By October 1942, the grand strategic designs of Case Blue, the German summer offensive on the Eastern Front, were rapidly grinding to a halt. While Army Group B was locked in a brutal attritional battle at Stalingrad, Army Group A's armored spearheads were stranded at the foot of the Caucasus Mountains. Starved of fuel and facing fierce Soviet resistance, General Ewald von Kleist's 1st Panzer Army could not break through the rugged mountain passes to reach the ultimate strategic prize, the oilfields of Baku. With the Caucasus route blocked, German planners desperately sought an indirect path to the Middle East. In this atmosphere of growing grand strategic panic, the German Army High Command resurrected and expanded a highly ambitious, secret operational plan, Operation Gertrude. This plan proposed a full-scale joint Axis invasion and occupation of the neutral Republic of Turkey to bypass the Caucasus barrier. The primary strategic objective of Operation Gertrude was to forge a secure overland logistical corridor extending through Anatolia. This pathway would allow German panzer divisions to sweep south into the British-controlled Middle East, seizing the massive oil fields of Mosul in Iraq and Abadan in Iran. However, this highly ambitious strategic design was completely decoupled from the harsh physical geography of the Anatolian plateau. Turkey was a formidable natural mountain fortress, bordered by rugged vertical ranges with steep peaks exceeding 10,000 feet, creating an exceptionally defensible environment for the defenders. Under the masterclass leadership of President İsmet İnönü, Turkey had mobilized over 800,000 well-trained soldiers to defend its sovereignty. These mountain-hardened infantry divisions possessed intimate local knowledge of the terrain, prepared to wage a grueling, slow-motion war of attrition against any invading force. The most critical operational bottleneck facing any potential German advance was the highly primitive state of the Turkish transportation network. The Turkish railway system was sparse, single-tracked, and heavily dependent on vulnerable wooden bridges, deep mountain cuts, and elevated brick viaducts that were easily targeted. Crucially, the main railway line running south toward the Syrian and Iraqi borders had to traverse the formidable Taurus Mountains. Here, the tracks squeezed through the narrow Cilician gates, a tactical bottleneck containing dozens of tunnels and high bridges that were pre-wired for immediate systematic destruction. Following their established national defense doctrine, Turkish combat engineers would have executed massive, pre-positioned demolitions of these key railway tunnels and bridges. This systematic Scorched-Earth campaign would have instantly shattered Turkey's transport lines, leaving the German army with absolutely no functional rail support. Without rail transport, the German logistical apparatus would have been forced to rely entirely on motorized transport columns, hauling hundreds of thousands of tons of heavy ammunition, rations, and replacement parts across hundreds of miles of unpaved mountain tracks would have collapsed at their transport lines. This motorized logistics reliance exposes the fatal mathematical contradiction that lay at the absolute core of Operation Gertrude. Supplying a multi-army offensive across the vast trackless expanses of central Anatolia would have consumed massive, irreplaceable quantities of Germany's dwindling reserves of high-octane synthetic fuel. The Wehrmacht would have mathematically consumed far more synthetic fuel attempting to reach the Middle East than they could have possibly captured. Long before German panzers could even reach the Syrian border, their supply trucks would have run completely dry, leaving their armored spearheads stranded in Anatolia. Beyond the insurmountable fuel crisis, an invasion of Turkey would have instantly triggered a catastrophic metallurgical disaster for German heavy industry. This self-inflicted bottleneck centered on chromium, the most critical alloy required for the manufacture of high-strength steel for tank armor and crankshafts. Turkey was Germany's primary external supplier of high-grade chromite ore, providing over 50% of the Wehrmacht's total chromium requirements. Under the historical Clodius Agreement, Turkey masterfully utilized this metallurgical monopoly as a powerful diplomatic shield to maintain its neutral status. The moment German forces crossed the frontier, this vital trade relationship would have been instantly and permanently severed. The Turkish government would have immediately halted all chromite exports to the Axis powers, starving German steel mills of the crucial metallurgy raw material. Furthermore, following their strict defense protocols, Turkish forces would have systematically sabotaged and flooded the major chromite mines at Güliman and Fethiye. This destruction would have ensured that even if the Germans captured the mining districts, they could not extract ore for years. Within 6 months of the invasion, Germany's domestic chromium stockpiles would have been completely depleted, causing a rapid, catastrophic decline in steel quality. German armor plate would become highly brittle, shattering easily under the impact of standard Allied anti-tank artillery. Simultaneously, the invasion would have triggered a massive Allied military intervention. British forces stationed in Syria, Palestine, and Iraq would have immediately advanced into southern Turkey to secure the northern approaches to the Suez Canal and protect the vital Persian Gulf oil pipeline infrastructure. The Soviet Union would have also reacted aggressively, utilizing the remaining combat power of their Black Sea fleet to bombard Axis landing zones and shipping. Red Army divisions stationed in the southern Caucasus would have launched powerful flanking attacks along the rugged Turkish border. Thus, the opening phase of Operation Gertrude would have devolved into a bloody, high-casualty amphibious crossing of the Bosporus and Dardanelles Straits. Turkish coastal artillery and heavy machine guns firing from fortified bunkers would have turned the narrow waterways into an absolute slaughterhouse. Once across the straits, German infantry would have found themselves trapped in a grueling, slow-motion mountain campaign. The rugged Anatolian peaks, dense forests, and narrow passes would have completely neutralized the speed and tactical maneuverability of the German panzer divisions. Rather than securing Middle Eastern oil, Operation Gertrude would have created a new, impossibly demanding theater of war that consumed the Wehrmacht's final reserves. The German army would have been bled white in the Turkish mountains, starved of fuel and ammunition. The self-inflicted metallurgical disaster of losing Turkish chromium would have crippled German heavy industry back home. Without high-quality steel to build tanks, locomotives, and heavy artillery, the entire industrial base of the Third Reich would have collapsed under its own weight. Operation Gertrude remains a powerful historical monument to the absolute supremacy of logistics, geography, and raw materials over military willpower. By attempting to invade Turkey, the Wehrmacht would have sealed its own destruction, turning Anatolia into the ultimate graveyard of the German panzers.